Hey, it's Stu, and this is a mighty enthusiastic haul video. I've been busy making space and using space a little bit differently. So what you see behind me is actually a bookshelf built into my apartment. And on the other side where my sitting room is, there's also bookshelves built in, but I'm using them for like more like display of things that I use in my kitchen. But I don't really need a lot of those things anymore now that my child's gone. And then also, I have two bookshelves in like a storage closet where I just have them full of storage things, which I'm quite enthusiastic about going through. Of course, I should probably curb myself a little before filling them up with books, because moving a whole bunch of books into an unknown space sometime next year could be a little hectic and cause me stress. But my hauls have just been so fantastic lately that yeah, it's hard not to just continue to reorganize and use up the space that I do have. Just a reminder, if you've never seen a video by me before, I 100% haul from Little Free Libraries, Friends of the Library, book sales, and thrift stores. And this week I actually used an independent bookstore. I took some books that I got from book sales, got some credit, and got a couple books. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to that haul. But generally, free or cheap. My average price I'm paying for a book is between $3 and $4. And that money is for the book, of course, but as most of the books I actually check out digitally or audioly from my libraries, it's to have them on display to contribute some money to the thrift and Friends of the Library, and then also to get the books into friends, into the hands of friends or into the Little Free Library ecosystem. So that's kind of my mission. So far, it's been fantastic. My hauls have been a little bit out of control, meaning I'm hauling way more than I thought that I would be, given my collection, and in fact have always go through a little bit of speculation, contemplation, reflection, and maybe even guilt about overconsumption. So I always want to kind of keep that in check. But my reading has still been quite voracious. I'm in a voracious reading mood for the last year. I read about 250 books last year, and it looks like I'm probably on track for that kind of number for next year as well. But who knows? I mean, when are we going to start tracking? I started probably in September tracking, yeah, last year. So anyway, let's get into these books. I'll stop blabbing. I'm really, really excited about my Little Free Library hauls. I did that over this weekend. It was a really blistery, disgustingly rainy weekend, but I still, my tote was full of on hauls, which I'd read and or just, in going through my shelves and reorganizing, made decisions like, no, I've had this from a Little Free Library for longer than I should have. Whatever that means in my mind, let me get it back out, see if something else comes up that's kind of on my reading trends right now. And so that's what I did. Last time I unhauled into Little Free Libraries, my ratio was like unhauling three to haul one per Little Free Library, actual Little Free Library, or just kind of overall, because I did unhaul in several Little Free Libraries and take nothing. This time it was more like 101. So I have a almost one-to-one, almost one-to-one. I have a pretty big stack. Let's get to it. I found at one of my favorite Little Free Libraries this fantastic book in translation. And as you know, my pile of possibilities for November is the Bookers. And this was an International Booker long list for 2024, so it's a very recent read. I actually have Kairos, the 2024 Booker winner. That is my planned read, but I'm also thinking of doing Neurovember, and this book would really fit it, so more about that in that video. But this is Lost on Me by Veronica Raimo, and the original language is Italian, and the translator is Leah Jametsko. Okay, I recently finished The Real History of Costaguana, and in reading The Real History of Costaguana, I discovered that that book was like a reaction to Joseph Conrad's Nostromo, and it kind of imagined a character from Nostromo. And then I found Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness and Other Stories in a little free library this weekend, and I thought, since I hadn't really thought about Joseph Conrad in probably 30 years, it would be, yeah, great to just grab this book. It's a very annotated version, and my classic shelf's being a little bit neglected right now, where this is going, and I have a little classic shelf over there. So I think in the year I plan to integrate some classics in a little bit more. So I'm not just holding on to these little free library books. Oh, The Dew Breaker by Edwidge Donnicott. This is a Haitian author. And I actually hauled another book by this author called Breath, Eyes, and Memory from a little free library in Portland, Oregon. And I was really excited. I didn't have other Haitian authors on my shelf. Unfortunately, the book's font wasn't good. It wasn't going to work for me, and it didn't exist in my library. Doesn't have it digitally or audioly, so I traded it actually for this one, which is both better font and comes with a bookmark. You know how I love to find bookmarks. It's better font, but also it exists in my library as well. So that was a stellar find. Oh, I think this is number 2 of a series by Alice Walker, and this is The Temple of My Familiar. I don't remember having read this book, so this would be not having read Alice Walker. It's going to go on my classic shelf next to The Color Purple. And I think Alice Walker is like one of those, am I gonna unhaul her, or am I just gonna have small collections of beloved authors? We shall see. Okay, this one doesn't exist at my library, so I have to decide if I'm gonna take it to, because daylight hours are just going away, winter time's coming, if I'm gonna take it to San Diego and read it in Lanai since it's little. But this is a Gothic classic, and this is Madmen of the Mountain by Henry Somerset. And yeah, if I make the decision that, yeah, this is my jam, and I'll take it, because yeah, it's okay, but I feel like I need natural light for this. Look at this fantastic cover. So if I decide to take it, great, I'll put it in that pile. If not, I'll send this back out to the little free library. Oh, in the same little free library, I found this, which is Sonia Wagner's Lion. And this is a story about a relationship between a father and a daughter. And the father's a skydiver, and I think the father's born in Buenos Aires. And so there's some risk taking, and there's some, I think this is somewhat autobiographical, which isn't really my jam, but you know, it's not very big. And although I'm really trying to get through Seeing Further, which is also an NYRB book, I'm just, it's not working as much as I want because of its memoir style. I thought that I would still grab this and give it a chance. It's not that big of a commitment, and absolutely, it's an arc as well. And you know how I feel about arcs. Okay, right here, right off camera, is my Jose Saramago collection, of which I have 3, and this will be my 4th. I think Baltasar Blamunda is one of his more known works. Definitely this font, you see how it's a little bit dark? That contrast doesn't work for me at all. So I got this home, and then I had to make sure that I had it in Libby. And I could get it from my library, because I probably couldn't read this book even in natural light without it. Just, there's too much darkness. It hurts my head for some reason. Anyway, definitely really loved Blindness when I read it some 30 years ago. So if I find Blindness again, I'll haul it. But I'm actually really excited. I haven't read any other Jose Saramago, and I'm excited to give one of his other works a chance. Okay, American Mermaid by Julia Langbien. Because on my 10 till the end I put Circe, I thought that this was kind of a good replacement for a Circe-esque book, meaning that this is a bit of a meditation on the sexism behind the mermaid stories, tropes, characters that we've been given. And I think this is also a little bit of commentary about the publishing industry. I think that this is a bit fun. Maybe the subject matter, as I just said, isn't super light, but the book doesn't take an incredibly complex or convoluted stance on it. Kind of just, I think it's a English teacher who writes a little book about a mermaid, and then it goes, an American mermaid, and then it goes kind of viral, and then we have to look at how mermaids are represented, the sexist representation of this mythical character, and also you know, how this woman is treated in her publishing journey. Okay. Yeah, this one I hauled for a friend. This friend, he's trying to learn Spanish through reading, and this is this is exactly his jam. This is a side-by-side stories from Latin America, Historias de Latinoamérica. I will give this to my friend the next time that I see him, and as adult lives goes, look at that, isn't that fantastic? It could be later rather than sooner. In the meantime, I plan to just read a couple of these short stories. I don't even think I'm going to put this on a TBR. I'm just going to read through a couple of these little short stories in the Spanish, because I have a small Spanish language collection, but I haven't really been reading in Spanish. And yeah, I think, for instance, this El Matador de Tiburones, it appeals to me. And so I'll have that kind of on my reading shelf until I see that friend. Oh, okay. In my neighborhood, I mean my blocks, Little Free Library, somebody had just on hold all of Roxane Gay's books. It was all I could do to not take Difficult Women again and just say it's like I'm ready to reread it even now. And maybe if that book is there, you know, in the next few weeks, it's not being taken by somebody, I will. But I did grab Not That Bad, which is just edited by Roxane Gay, and this is a this is called Dispatches from Rape Culture, and it's a series of essays, and I feel like this is a good book to have around when I am confronted by this, to have frameworks with which to contemplate and to process when I'm confronted with the sexism that I sometimes talk about when I'm in a book review, and I'm like, I'm so distracted by this and it's really bothering me. And even though there are other parts of this book that are quite good, and especially if I'm gonna mix in some classics, I think I just need a companion read to help with this, these frameworks around this is why it's insidious, this kind of sexism, especially in thinking through Dispatches from Rape Culture. Okay, the last two. Can you believe that these are in Little Free Libraries? This is a signed copy of I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay. I read The Great Believers I was part of my LGBTQIA month reading. I enjoyed it. I like the way that this author, Rebecca Mackay, tells stories. This was also, as I'm building my sort of extended pile of possibilities of women's prize longlisters, this book indeed is one of those. So I can see it being read in like the next year, because I plan to filter in women prize long-listed books through every month until the prize is announced, which I believe is way into the spring, right? So then judges were the panel was just announced to have to start reading all of those nominations. also a signed copy of Hernan Diaz's Trust. I have, and you might, let me see, it's right there. I have a really good conditioned trust that I got from a thrift store recently, and I was pretty excited to get it because this was something I saw at a hostel, actually the first hostel I stayed in this summer, and it was a big commitment, kind of a dense read, a bit of a classic-y feel read, and I just didn't get to it over the summer, so I was really glad to find it, to have the physical to remind me. The physicals are what remind me of what to get to, and how to prioritize my reading. And so I found it at a thrift store, and I, bought it for like $3. And then I found this hardback signed copy, and it from a Little Free Library. So since it came from a Little Free Library, it has to go back to Little Free Library. But what I think that I might do in addition is take that softback of Trust and just put it in. I already traded a different book for this, but I felt a little greedy taking a book that I already have because it's signed. And yeah, I do adore the story of the book and having signed books, even if I am just going to unhaul them. So I might take my pristine condition softback and put it in the same Little Free Library, or maybe not. We'll see the next time I get around there. Okay, the 3 books that I got from the independent bookstore are these. And they are books that I have an interest in reading and have been, they've been on my radar, and I just haven't seen them in any of the thrifting situations, any of the Friends of the Libraries, any of the thrift stores and or Little Free Libraries. So the jam at this place is you bring in books, they give you store credit, and then that store credit goes to up to 50% off of used books. I think it's a decent policy. So I got these books for a little bit more using my credit, but also for a little bit more than I normally pay, which tracks with, bookstores rather than thrift shops. They know what they're doing with books. This is used, although in fantastic condition, Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. I believe this is her debut. I really want to try Eliza Clark. She's an author that I know a little bit about, meaning I've heard some people talk about her, and I just want to give her a try. I believe, yeah, this is from 2023, so it's quite recent. I'm getting quite the Barbara Kingsolver collection. It is over here. And I think I would be remiss to not have Demon Copperhead, which was a Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist, maybe winner, but also the Pulitzer Prize winner. So I think that I think I'm going to see myself reading this during Pulitzer Prize season. This one is a little bit damaged, and so it was cheaper than most of the books at that bookshop. That being said, I don't mind a bunged up book, and I don't think that Barbara Kingsolver is like Louise Erdrich and Toni Morrison and Alice Walker to me. I think even though I'm building a collection, I'm happy to let her books go back out into the ecosystem of book trading and loving. Last but not least is Flashlight by Susan Choi. We know that this book, I believe, was shortlisted, and I don't follow them that much, but I know it was at least on the long list, if not on the short list, for both the National Book Award and the Booker, and we'll be finding out those winners in 10 and 20 days. This is an ARC, and it also has a Little Free Library stamp, so without being self-righteous, I am kind of glad that I was able to haul it, not just because it's super relevant, but maybe the bookstore wasn't being super careful when they exchanged this book, because really ARCs shouldn't be sold. I feel like that, I see them all the time at thrift stores. I see them at even sometimes Friends of the Libraries, although the Friends of the Library store that I go to all the time does not sell ARCs. They put them into little free libraries. And I try not to be too judgmental and self-righteous. This is keeping books out in circulation, but I just really wish that booksellers would honor that stamp, and that would probably sort of assist in this culture of stealing from little free libraries, I guess people would call it, and or taking all of the books not to read, or, you know, the culture behind a little free library is to take a book, leave a book, trade kind of thing, and then people clean them out for whatever reasons. If they brought it to this bookstore, it only was equal to 50% off credit at the bookstore, so they might have just also been like, oh, I didn't realize it was an ARC as well. If it wins, if it is indeed shortlisted, I'll read it, and I'll actually just find daylight hours to work through this physical copy, because the digital and or audio will be on hold for so long that this is when it is advantageous to have a physical copy. Okay, before this video gets too long, let me just go through my thrift store haul. I made the mistake of going to the thrift store. I have a goal of just donating like every week or every other week. I'm going through every part of the things that I own and just being a bit ruthless about, you know, not holding on to things, not having, like, trying to reduce the amount of stuff that I have in my apartment, thinking about a move, but also just thinking about, I have a lot of things. Books are the least of my worries, actually, although they are heavy and, you know, require a certain kind of care to take care of. I have too many clothes. I have too many dishes. I have too many blankets. I have, these are my judgment words. So I went to the thrift store, and I made the mistake of doing that before the little free library experience, because I maybe held more books than I would have otherwise, but I'm really, really excited about these finds. So this is Zadie Smith's debut, and I don't know if Swing Time was her sophomore or just came later, but Swing Time, which was the one that was longlisted for Booker, maybe shortlisted. Anyway, I don't follow Booker that much to know, but that's on my 10 until the end. So it's in my Booker pile of possibilities, and it's also on my 10 until the end. So it means it's going to get prioritized to be read in November. So I was super excited to find White Teeth, and this version of it at my local thrift store. This $3 wonderfully conditioned book. White Teeth was, I think it was called the Orange Prize then, was definitely longlisted for what is now known as the Women's Prize for Fiction. So it fits into that category as well. And it'll, you know, just take the spot of the empty spot of Swing Time, as I pulled that off and put that on my TBR thingy shelfie pile of possibilities. Speaking of Barbara Kingsolver, Flight Behavior was at actually several Barbara Kingsolver books were at my local thrift shop, but this is the one I hauled. It has a bookmark in it, which is lovely. It has some bent pages. So not pristine condition, doesn't really bother me. This book is 2013, so a little bit more recent than a lot of the stuff that the thrift store also had, was like the 90s and 80s stuff that I've read way long ago, and some recently. Flight Behavior was longlisted for a Women's Prize, so it fits in that category. Therefore, it was on my mind. Speaking of prizes, I have two books that were on the long list for 2021. That's Sanjeev Sahot's China Room, and that was longlisted in 2021. And then Damon Galgut, The Promise, was the winner from 2021. Super excited to find both of these as bookers on my mind. This is a book I'd be interested in, am interested in reading. I don't know if, because, you know, I already have quite a few books on my Booker Pilot Possibility, so it's not probably going to happen this November unless I feel like I'm going to swap it up for another one that I already had planned. The same with The Promise. I hadn't seen this in thrift stores before, and you know, there were 2, maybe 3 copies of this at the thrift store. So it just kind of goes to show how reading trends, you can see them even in thrift stores. Anyway, super excited to find both of those. And the last was a bit of a, I'm just going to give it a try. This gave me vibes of something kind of like American Mermaid, of these are going to be, it's going to be confronting some serious and deep, and this gives me vibes that it's going to confront harassment and maybe assault. This is maybe a rideshare driver, and I don't know that much. I read a little bit about the back, but it seems like that's what this book is going to do. I think it's going to use some, I don't know, some kind of comedy type, dark humor type stuff. These are my guesses about this book. But I also think that it's not going to be super complex and heavy. So it's going to confront these themes, but be a bit of a page turner. And sometimes, if they don't get over tropey or too paper thin, I really want and appreciate that kind of a read. So that was that read pick. So there we go. It was a book-ish weekend. I also attended a talk over a book from a local author, a webinar, which was fantastic, and got a lot of reading done because the weather was kind of curl up and read a book kind of weather. I am really excited. Again, I was able to kind of reorganize and find space. So these do have space, and although some part of me wishes that it would make me slow down to be out of sort of what I've already got aligned for space, because I'm hauling a lot. I also am just really, you know, it's exciting, isn't it, to organize in your books and get them to all fit in. And so that's what I'm going to do just now. And I think the next video I'm going to make is going to be for the November possibilities, since I didn't include those when I was talking about my piles of possibilities for November. So until next time.